What's going on, gardeners? It's Tuesday, November 23rd, and it is the first truly winter-like day here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, and we have a big freeze moving in tonight, and we have 3 lows in the upper 20s scheduled for this week. So the cold weather is moving in, and I have lots of sensitive vegetation that I have to protect, trees that can't survive this type of weather. So now I'm going to show you all how you can protect that sensitive vegetation completely for free.
If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
For those of you that follow my channel, you know that I have an avocado tree and several citrus trees planted in ground here in Zone 8A, North Carolina. And the problem with that is these are anywhere from 8B to 9A trees. Therefore, I have to protect them on the coldest nights of the year, or they will be outright killed in my climate in many instances. And I've showed you how I've accomplished this in the past. In previous videos, I've showed you how to use incandescent Christmas lights and plant jackets in order to provide artificial heat for the trees. The incandescent Christmas lights provide a heat source, and then the plant jackets hold that heat in, and it can provide pretty easily 10 degrees of protection for this sensitive vegetation. So between adding artificial heat with those Christmas lights and plant jackets, and then planting them up against the south wall of my house because it's a warm microclimate that blocks the cold north wind of the winter, I've been really successful at protecting these trees. However, last year, something horrible happened that really scared me and got me thinking. And that horrible event that I'm speaking of is that tremendous freeze that hit Texas in February of 2021. It was a really historic event, and parts of Texas recorded temperatures lower than they ever have in recorded history, and those that had long records, well, you'd have to go all the way back to the 1800s to find a freeze that bad. And that went on to kill tremendous amounts of sensitive vegetation around the area, all over the state, that had never had to endure temperatures like that. And to make things worse, that cold air outbreak came with days of power outages. So for people that relied on heating their sensitive vegetation, they were completely out of luck because they didn't have power to run any kind of lights or heaters. And if you don't have power, what are you going to do to keep your plants warm? They would all die in conditions like that. So I had to think to myself, what happens if I get an Arctic outbreak and then it comes with an ice storm that also knocks out the power? What am I supposed to do? I have to come up with another answer. I have to come up with a passive heat source that can heat my plants if I don't have power and provide backup protection. The way I'm going to provide a passive free heat source is using these old repurposed food grade pickle barrels right here. These were old pickle barrels that used to contain 60 gallons worth of either dill or sweet pickles that was shipped long distances, either in trucks or in ships. They come in these containers, then they take these containers and then they move them into smaller jars, and you're left with these leftover 60-gallon storage containers. And they are surprisingly easy to find. All you have to do is just go to Craigslist and type in either pickle barrel or 60-gallon barrel or olive barrel, and you're able to often find these for anywhere from $20 to $30 that will hold liquid for you. I was able to get these all for 25 bucks, and I am going to use these as a passive heater for my cold sensitive plants by filling them up with water. And that is because water has a very high specific heat value. Specific heat is the heating capacity of a material. In the case of water, the specific heat of water is 4,182 joules per kilogram degree Celsius. And what that means is to heat 1 kilogram's worth of water, 1 degree Celsius, you need 4,182 joules of energy. And this is precisely why it takes so long for a pot of water on the stove to boil. To raise that water from 20 degrees Celsius to 100 degrees Celsius, which is room temperature to boiling point, it takes tens of thousands of joules of energy, maybe even hundreds of thousands if it's a large enough stock pot. And that's why it takes so long for water to boil. But The reason why it takes so long for water to absorb heat is also why it is a great heat source of passive heat. It radiates heat for hours after that water heats up. So when you fill these up with 60 gallons of water, these black barrels sit in the sun all day and they absorb tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of joules worth of free solar heat. And then when the sun goes down, it will radiate those tens or hundreds of thousands of joules of energy in heat back out to the surrounding area. And they work wonders as a passive free heat source for your plants. And the best part is, every single day when the sun comes back up, it will recharge your heaters for free. These are basically like giant solar heaters. A few days ago, I showed you the new citrus trees that I have growing in the back corner of my yard, protected under a little bit of a tree canopy. I have a brown select satsuma that you can see right there. I have a Meiwa kumquat that you can see right there. And I have a Caracara Washington, which is a red mutated Washington navel orange right here. And a Caracara is a solid 9A tree, and the other two are 8B trees. So me living in 8A, they are not hardy to my area, but I can stretch them with some protection. Now, like I said, we have hard freezes moving in for 3 nights this week. And while these trees will be tolerant to the hard freezes when they are mature, they've only been in the ground for something like 5 months. They're not fully established and they're very tender, so they can get damaged in temperatures like these. So what I have here is I moved 2 of the pickle barrels in between the trees, and I'm filling them up with water from my hose right here. And that is going to act as a passive heat source to keep them warm. Now, eventually, later in the year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run some incandescent Christmas lights and cover them in the Christmas lights, and then run an extension cord from my house to power them, to provide them with even more cold protection in the depths of the cold in the winter. And then I'm going to build a little hoop house structure up against this fence to lock in all of that heat. Now, in November, our freezes aren't quite as severe, so I don't need that kind of protection for right now. So for the time being, all I'm going to do is fill up these 60-gallon pickle drums right here full of water, and that will act as a radiation heat source all night. And I'll simply throw a large frost cloth over them in order to lock in the heat from the pickle barrels and keep them warm. And then right here in this heat shield right here, there is a thermometer that is connected to my wireless weather station that connects back to a docking station in my house. So I will be able to monitor the temperature that is in between these barrels underneath the frost blanket that I'm going to throw on top of them, and we will see exactly how much protection these barrels provide. So now our pickle barrels are completely filled with water, so we are going to seal them up so we don't lose any of the water to the evaporation. And these come with lids, so we will secure them. Now that they're all full, we just have to cover them with a frost blanket later to hold in the warmth. And then over here we have our third pickle barrel. It is all full of water, and that will provide just a little bit of additional heat protection for the avocado and the Meyer lemon. It'll be minimal compared to the overall heat retention of the brick wall of the house, but every little bit helps. And on particularly cold nights, it's amazing how much protection 1 or 2 degrees can do for you. So we're going to do the same thing here and pop this top on. And then in order to monitor the temperature over here by the Meyer lemon and the avocado tree, I have yet another thermometer that I have installed in this tree. And that wireless thermometer right there, that keeps track of the temperature in this general region. And I'm able to monitor that on my weather station. And I can wirelessly track how much warmer it is throughout the evening than the rest of my yard. And usually there is a 3 to 5 degree advantage just from the ambient heat of the house alone. That doesn't include any water barrels, incandescent lights, or plant jackets. So we have our citrus trees and the pickle barrels that are filled with water covered up with this 12-foot by 20-foot frost blanket. So you can see it all the way around, and it's nice and airtight. I have some bricks on the bottom that is holding the blanket in place. So that should hold in the heat, and with the thermometer underneath, we'll be able to gauge our performance later. So I have a plant jacket, which is linked in my Amazon storefront, on my Meyer Lemon on the right. I have some incandescent strand lights that I left on from last year that'll keep my Satsuma warm on the left. Now I just have to cover my avocado tree, and to use that, I'm going to use one of these plant jackets that I have linked in my Amazon storefront. This is a 120 inch by 120 inch plant jacket. These things are really awesome when it comes to protecting your plants. Now the nice thing about these plant jackets is, depending on the weight, they have anywhere from 60% to 90% light transmission. So you don't have to take them off every day. So I will be able to leave these plant jackets on for the next 4 days until we get through this unusual cold spell. So I'm going to leave these covered, as well as leave my citrus covered in the back at night with the water barrels. And I will track all of the individual temperatures on my weather station, and we will see how the insulation provided by the pickle barrels will compare versus the ambient outdoor temperature.
Well, we just had back-to-back hard freezes, a solid 15 degrees or more below our seasonal average for this time of year, and I'm not used to having such hard freezes come in here in November. So all of my tender annuals have been killed, my garden is done for the year, and I was able to log all of this data and find out just how well my protection methods worked on my citrus trees. So right here you have all of my data that my weather station logged, and outdoor temperature is my ambient temperature out in the middle of the yard, in my garden, unprotected. Then I have where my avocado tree is on this avocado temperature. That is up against the south wall of my house, so that is purely the microclimate of the south wall of my house. Now I had the water barrel at the south wall of my house wrapped in with the plant jacket of the Meyer Lemon, not the avocado temperature. So the avocado temperature that you see is only from the radiating heat of the south wall of my house. There was no water barrel advantage of any kind. Then I have my citrus hedge temperatures, which had the two 60-gallon water barrels underneath the cover. So that benefited from the radiated heat of the water. Now let's start with night one. Night one was the coldest night. We had an absolute minimum temperature of 25.3 degrees Fahrenheit. The avocado saw a temperature of 28.0 degrees Fahrenheit, and the citrus hedge with the water barrels way in the back saw an absolute minimum temperature of 35.2 degrees Fahrenheit. So the house gave me a 2.7 degree advantage from the radiating heat, which is roughly about half of a hardiness zone, so a quarter of a hardiness zone. The water barrels saw a massive advantage of 9.9 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is almost 10 degrees, one complete hardiness zone. So those citrus trees in the back never dropped below 35.2 degrees. That is very impressive. Now night two, we got down to 26.2 degrees Fahrenheit. And I was concerned about the citrus in the back because we didn't get very warm during the day, and I was afraid that because we were so far below average that my water barrels wouldn't heat back up and really give enough protection to the citrus. But still, they only fell to 35.1 degrees Fahrenheit, so that saw an 8.9 degree advantage, which is really in line with the 9.9 degrees that we saw the previous night. Then the avocados, that got down to 29.8, which is a 3.6 degree Fahrenheit advantage. So 2.7 and 3.6 from the simple radiating heat of the house, and then 9 to 10 degrees for the water barrels. Incredibly impressive. Now I made a little graphic here that I want to show you, which is the actual tracked temperatures that my weather station logged. It logs every 5 minutes. So you can't look at the daytime temperatures because they spike too much, because everything is still wrapped in a plant jacket, so the plant jackets are making things artificially hot. The sun messes it up during the day, so you have to disregard this chunk of data, this chunk of data, and this chunk of data. We're only interested in the low temperatures that you see that are very controlled, because there's no sun, there's no radiation from the sun messing things up. So I made a graphic right here that cuts out all of the sun's effects, which really skews the numbers. So you only see the radiating heat effect of the water barrels in the south wall of my house. So you'll see the blue line on the bottom is just the ambient temperature of the yard. And the reason why the blue line is very choppy is because the temperatures will fluctuate based on any errant winds that come in. So anytime there's a little breeze that comes in during the night, it stirs up the air. So you see these rapid fluctuations in the temperatures every few minutes, every time the weather station logs. So it's very uneven. However, with the radiative heat of the house, which is the red line, you'll see it's very smooth because that slow radiation of the collected heat throughout the day, that helps moderate the temperatures. So that's why you see that very smooth line. Now the water barrels are even more impressive because the specific heat of water is so high. You'll see how smooth it makes that line from the water barrels. Really beautiful, and you can see the tremendous heat advantage you are getting from those water barrels. A solid 9 to 10 degrees each night. Very impressive. I'm very, very happy with the results of this experiment. And like I said, I still intend to add some strand lights as well for an added few degrees of protection in case we get that annual 8A minimum where we will see a 10 to 15 degree minimum, because that may not be enough to just have the water barrels on those very young trees. So I want to run those incandescent lights for added backup. But that is really a tremendous amount of protection that you see right there. So that easily makes my zone 8A climate a 9A climate just with the water barrels. And I think when I add strand lights, I can probably get pretty darn close to a 9B 10A microclimate. So super impressive. If you were to double up on the incandescent lights and the water barrels, you may be able to grow citrus in ground all the way down to zone 7A. Because if I can get 10 to 20 degrees of protection, that means that even when it's 0 degrees out in a 7A climate, you can bring your temperature up to about 20, I think, when we combine both methods. So you can plant satsumas in ground in zone 7, I think, with a pretty high degree of confidence when you double up on these protection methods. And here are all of my citrus trees in absolutely perfect condition, and why wouldn't they be? Because they were kept well above freezing. There was no chance of them suffering any kind of damage at all. And I have to say, I'm really impressed by how well this turned out. I did not expect to get a full hardiness zone's worth of protection simply from 2 water barrels split between 3 different trees. Imagine how good the protection could have been if I were to pair up 1 water barrel per tree, if I would have put 3 and each tree had its own individual water barrel. So it's entirely possible to get a full hardiness zone's worth of protection where you don't have to rely on extension cords and electricity, and that protection will be there no matter what happens to your electricity during a storm. Now just extrapolate what I'm doing right here based on your zone. This makes it possible to grow citrus in ground pretty much anywhere in zone 8. But if you're in zone 9, you'll be able to start experimenting with things like maybe growing mangoes in ground where you thought you couldn't before, thanks to these water barrel protections. Or if you're in zone 5, you can start experimenting with growing fig trees in ground. If you grow a fig tree and you simply prune it back after your first couple of frosts, leave yourself a trunk that's about that high, put a water barrel up against it, cover it with a plant jacket, and just leave it there all season, and chances are that water barrel will protect any future dieback, and you'll have a huge boost. You won't have to start with some kind of tree that died all the way down to the base. So really, the potential is limitless. These are completely free ways to provide a tremendous amount of protection to your garden. So now that I know how well these are going to work, I'm going to further experiment, and I'm going to also run some incandescent lights out here, and I want to see how much protection I can get when I combine lights and these water barrels, because if I can get 15 to 20 degrees of protection, it will now make it possible for you folks in zone 7 to grow in-ground citrus with the cold hardiest varieties like your satsumas and your kumquats. Imagine being on the zone 7A, 7B border and having your own dwarf citrus tree in ground, and all you need to protect them is a water barrel or 2 and a couple of strand lights. Pretty awesome.
It seems pretty fitting to film the outro of this video right underneath my now crushed banana trees that have been totally burnt back by the hard freeze. But hey, you can't protect every single thing in your yard. This is just motivation to help you grow bigger and better every single year and show you how easy it can be with a little bit of ingenuity. So everybody, if you found this video helpful and inspiring, please make sure to hit that like button and ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my garden, they're all linked in my Amazon storefront down in the video description. And also check out my spread shop link there for custom merch if you'd like to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Dale's food bowl is all filled. I filled it while he was outside going potty. Let's see how good his psychic abilities are. Whoa, 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 whoa! How does he know? How does he know it's full? How does he know it's full? There he goes. Dale! Dale! Dale, did you enjoy your time outside? Dale! Buddy! Dale! Look over here! Alright, we'll let him go and have his breakfast, but he's almost finished already.